now it's time for Ellie's favourite part of the show.
People have been to the cinema or done other stuff. Here's the spoiler-free reviews of the things that everyone's done.
It's good you mentioned spoiler-free. That could have really went wrong there.
Apparently, we all have a 3-thing limit, just FYI.
Oh, yeah.
No, everyone else is fine, Liam. It's just you.
Okay.
You have a 3-thing limit.
I have a 3-thing limit.
To be fair, we could probably be as bad as Liam if we had seen 3 things.
This is true.
Did you see our fucking... We were doing that Godzilla. That was 2 films on our show. And that went for 2 hours.
but we did spoilers. It's a lot harder when it's spoiler-free.
That's true.
So
watch us do it anyway.
Who wants to kick it off?
I'll start.
Cool.
I've not done anything.
Thanks, Ellie.
Moving on.
Wow. Fucking what a useful
I was so
contribution.
excited. I just thought you were leaping in there. Like, my God, Ellie's really taking the charge this time.
Yeah.
She's really got something that she's eager to push on to people, and it's nothing. Damn it.
No. I can start with Solo, a Star Wars story, if anyone else has seen that and wants to do a spoiler-free discussion.
Sure, man. I'll get in with you.
I know most of the spoilers anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Go ahead.
Sweet. And I know Ellie's seen it because she discussed it on the last episode, which isn't available yet because she's slow editing it.
Because we recorded on Friday or Thursday.
Thursday. You had plenty of time. Yeah, it was Solo, a Star Wars story, which is the origin of Han Solo. We find out how he got his name.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It was underwhelming.
It was what?
Is it a spoiler?
Underwhelming. Just the origin of the name.
It was always going to be underwhelming, that part of it. I mean...
No, but I mean, it plays into the overall Star Wars mythos, in my opinion, anyway. It's kind of fun because it doesn't matter where your name comes from. It kind of goes with the beats that Rey has in The Force Awakens as well, so it's kind of interesting. The fact that there's no real association. So the fact that it was such a non-event, I was like, good. He's not tied to anything. This is great. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I'm pleased. I'm pleased that I've got you guys on to discuss it because I feel like you're going to give a nice counterbalance to my views on it, which would generally,
So we've went from the if you can't say anything positive,
meh. I mean, okay, so I did like. Oh, I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation. How do you say the main guy's name?
Han Solo.
The actor.
Alden Ehrenreich.
Alden, right. Yeah.
That's it. I thought he was really good.
Yeah.
I liked it. This is a weird thing to pick up on, I think, maybe, but I really liked the lighting throughout it. It didn't
a lot of people are
necessarily...
bitching about that, but I'm glad that you're bringing it up.
Yeah,
it was in the news saying that the most cinemas haven't got the projectors set up to show it properly, and that's why they're saying maybe watch Solo at home, where the screen will backlight what it's supposed to look like.
Okay.
But unless you went to see it in IMAX, you're probably not seeing the full picture properly. And all
I
the
saw it in
lighting and all
IMAX,
that.
so I was
those
fine.
that see it that way, they see a film that's supposed to be seen that way, and everybody else saw like supposedly a very dark, hard to make out movie because projectors don't give off they give off like 60% of the light required for the tones used by Solo.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. See, I saw it.
Much of the bitching is coming from. It is a genuinely bad experience, spun poorly.
Yeah, I saw it just a normal cinema screen, but it looked fine, and I liked the kind of the use of lighting. Woody Harrelson was good.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Glover was obviously just perfect for that role, I thought.
Handsome
Yeah.
for that role.
See, that's the difference between you and I right now. I thought that Donald Glover was doing an impression more than actually acting, and I
really?
kind of was a little bit underwhelmed by his performance. I was like, oh man, you've got the intonation down and everything like that, but you're not making the character your own. Whereas that's what I liked about Ehrenreich's performance, where he was like, I'm going to kind of have a little bit of the swagger, but I have to earn it because I'm 10 years behind The New Hope. And so it was kind of interesting to see that change throughout, the entire arc. But that's it, Lando. I was kind of like, okay, yeah, he's cool. I do enjoy Donald Glover, but at the same time, I felt he was kind of boring in the movie, to be honest.
I mean, I don't think he was in it a whole lot, and I'm pleased that
you're right.
He wasn't kind of too much. I wouldn't have minded a little bit more, but I felt like Emilia Clarke was kind of wasted.
Oh, I disagree.
Really?
oh yeah, she's like a Bond girl in this one, man. She's like a femme fatale. She's kind of
Yeah.
there, but not there. But she's actually informs the rest of what Han Solo's going for, as well as an arc. I thought it was brilliant the way that you kind of live Han Solo's moments with him, but you can only but when you meet Kira again, you can only imagine what the hell's been going on behind that, just by the way she's walking, the way that she talks, a little bit more, self-assurance, but at the same time you realize that it's a facade. I thought it was so cool.
I get that, yeah. I that's why I wanted more of her, just because I liked her performance.
Yeah. Surprisingly, right? Usually she's kind of like, if anybody's watched Terminator Genesis, you're like,
yeah. I didn't particularly like how they did the first meeting between Han Solo and Chewbacca. I was just a bit, I don't know, didn't quite work for me. But
okay.
The problem I found with it is I liked little bits here and there, but most of it I was just kind of not that into it. I was just like, I could take it or leave it, sort of thing. Yeah. Which isn't really what I want from a Star Wars film. I want to be gripped and like just enthralled by it, and I didn't really get that. There was a cameo towards the end that obviously I can't say for spoilers, but I kind of dug that. I thought that was interesting.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm happy for other people to jump in with their thoughts, so it's not just a somewhat negative review.
Oh well, I'll push back on it. I understand that. I'll understand that it is a valid criticism to see it as somewhat of a non-event in Star Wars lore. However, I don't think the movie itself is about what it's about. It's about how it affects the rest of Star Wars. And that's the way I'm choosing to view it. When I watch it, I was like, okay, this is interesting because we've never really seen this type of pace in Star Wars. We've never seen the underbelly. This is a movie where, there's no Jedi in any of this, and so people have been clamoring to have a little bit more of an open world experience when it comes to Star Wars, and they finally get Solo and they decide to shit on it, which I thought was pretty strange. Because they introduced so many interesting new characters for me specifically. Like Enfys Nest, I think, is a fantastic new character. Like I tweeted out that this is well, anyway, cat's out of the bag. She's she's the Boba Fett movie I'd like to see. I think that there's a lot more to do with that type of character, especially in today's world. I mean, she looks like she would be a positive role model for my children in the end. You know what I mean? And that's not spoiling anything. You can be bad and good at the same time, and I think Nest kind of encapsulates that quite well. I also appreciate the fact that Solo itself, as generic as the story might be, because like most people are pointing out the fact that it's a checklist of all the shit that we've heard about for Han Solo, and at the same time you're like, okay, yeah, but what's in between that? That's kind of like cooking ribs and just chewing on the bones rather than the meat for me. Yeah. And so I liked how we get to meet Han, and the fact that Kira says to him, you're not the bad guy, you're the good guy, and how that affects how we view Ben Solo when he's in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and you're like, okay, like father, like son. So it actually kind of informs a lot more of the narrative that going forward. There's no mention of the Hutts in Han Solo as well. However, it's kind of understated, which is cool. The meeting with Chewbacca I thought was great because it riffs on when they find each other in Return of the Jedi again, which I thought was kind of a parallel thing where it's kind of a reuniting in a way.
Yeah.
I also love the fact that, and am I allowed one spoiler about Chewbacca?
You can say it, and then on the editing room floor, I'll have to make a call on whether it's a bad spoiler or not.
Well, I mean, a lot of people know that when we're going to find Chewbacca, a lot of what had been said is that he was in slavery, in chains, and all that. So that is in the movie. So anybody who's read any expanded universe stuff are aware of that.
Yeah.
What I didn't know that I thought was cool is that now we have confirmation that Chewbacca might have actually eaten people, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's pretty cool to see that.
I hadn't actually put that together until you just said it, and now I'm like, oh, yeah. Jeez.
That's a very big progression from a couple of months ago. People were freaking out he could have eaten porgs, and
now you're like, oh shit, he actually eats
human-eating monster.
There's a couple of cuts that I really enjoyed in how the film is edited. When Han's going through military academy, and they say, He's like, I can be a great pilot and all that. Oh, well, great. We're going to have you flying in no time. And then the next shot is him literally flying through the air because of an explosion that he's part of. And I thought that was a really good kind of fun visual pun going with the word. But yeah, overall, my experience with Solo, I thought it was a really interesting step in the right direction. It's weirdly paced. You can kind of tell that there's some stuff missing. But I really like the fact that it was a small story. You know what I mean? I thought that was interesting. You know, the smaller, little incremental parts, how they affect the rest of the Star Wars universe, even like tying the prequels to it, tying the sequels to it. You know, just embodied in this Han Solo character. I thought it was great to kind of get that. You know, kind of one of those young Indiana Jones adventures with a smuggler instead of an archaeologist. It was great.
Well, see, one of the things is I kind of like that it feels to me they've deliberately left enough open for another movie to slot in between Solo and like Episode 4.
Oh yeah.
I just don't think it's getting the box office that means we're going to get that movie necessarily.
That's what I mean. That leads me to my. I mean, I haven't seen Solo, so I don't have anything to think about that. But I mean, when I hear about like the idea that you like the idea, like Jason likes the idea that this smaller, self-contained story, and it's far more like. It's just like a side thing, right? And that's what a lot of people said was good about Rogue One as well. It's just like, whoa, isn't that interesting? It doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be this big explosive saga. It's just a little one-off, little trip to the world of Star Wars. And you kind of think, okay, so the budget's really high, and film sets this expectations where people have to go out and actually watch these things. And if the story's really small, but the budget's super high, I mean, surely they could kind of meet in the middle and be really good on TV or something, you know? And then people don't get caught up about, oh god, a Han Solo TV show, I can't watch that, you know? Like they'd be like, yeah, I would love to watch a Han Solo TV show. I'd invest hours and hours of time watching a Han Solo TV show. It was like HBO quality, like you know, like that's what I mean. Like, that's why I want to pose as a question to the two of you. You've seen the actual film. Do you think that if they had kind of worked it and paced it out a little longer, and made it into something like a 10-part series where they added obviously more elements to it, do you think it might have been better suited to be a pretty high budget TV show rather than a pretty mid-budget for a Star Wars film, fast edited movie? You know, did it have to be a movie basically?
I think it works as both. I mean, the budget right now, a lot of people are taking it out of context. The fact that they literally fired Lord and Miller halfway, almost when they were, I think it was like a month away from completion or 2 months away from completion. I mean, there's a lot of money that's been thrown away on this project, you know. But if you take that out of the equation and you look at the budget itself, they didn't have a bad opening weekend considering the fact that
they were still mostly top of the international box office and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's competing. I mean, I think the big mistake was going back to May. Stick to December, for Christ's sake.
Definitely.
If you're doing well, you own it, you know. And if you decide we're going to move it back, then no one's going to put anything there. But they already had like slated Mary Poppins and all that stuff. But I mean, I understand what you mean with regards to the TV show, and it would have been great because you kind of get to meet these side characters, and that could have been really well developed. The only thing is that Solo is a big player. He doesn't go on TV, to me anyway.
I would agree.
Minds.
I would agree if he was a part of like the main cast. You know, like Solo has always been an in and out character where he sort of jumps in, saves people, kind of plays a side role more than a lead role
to you
in the story. And I think
but I mean,
in each of the stories, he's not the main character. But when he is the main character, I think of like the old novels that he kind of led, and I think like those are so tailored to his type of character because he is in a sense a sort of asshole version of Indiana Jones, and those kind of serialized adventures suit the character in my head more than say a one set story that also has to kind of tie into a bunch of things in a short span of time and have it all kind of contained in one area of time rather than over a long couple of seasons where we kind of tease out these characters and these adventures and just make it a little more full, you know. They make his life seem a little, because he's obviously, from the moment we meet him as Harrison Ford, he seems like such a lived-in character that it just seems to me like to put that to film rather than TV just feels like you're just defaulting rather than thinking it through. And that's all I'm saying. I that's why I just wanted to ask, do you think it would have been better suited? Not necessarily you don't think it turned, like, the Solo film could be really good, it doesn't really matter. I'm just saying, do you think it would have been better to rethink the entire thing from the start and just pace it out as a TV show where we get to have sort of weekly adventures with Han Solo, rather than Han Solo, he has to carry a whole story about his tragic upbringing in one day, and then the next day he's got a love affair, and then the next day, and then cram that into 2 hours or an hour and a half or however long this is.
Well, I think like any story that has a lot of meat to it, and how much material is out there around Han Solo that they could have sort of drawn from, would be more beneficial for like a longer form sort of thing, like a TV show where you can get really into the character. I mean, with a film, you're always going to have like 2.5 hours to kind of tell your story and get out. Whereas a TV show, you can have a much more in-depth character study over like 10 hours. But I kind of see what Jason's saying as well, where it just seems to make more sense to have like a movie about Han Solo than a TV show.
Sure. Yeah, I was just asking your opinions anyway. It's
Yeah.
just,
I think spin-offs.
spin-offs
would.
I'm
be
gonna
good,
go. Oh, sorry.
Spin-offs would be good in my opinion. I mean, Solo, like I said, maybe not to you, but to a lot of people that grew up with the original trilogy, Han Solo is part of the big three, right?
Yeah.
And so
No,
he's equal. And I agree with you. He's not my guy either. You know what I mean? I'm just surprised by what they were able to put together. However, I would take like a series where the Hutts are involved, and then you'll see other kind of bounty hunters and smugglers and all that stuff, where you maybe have like a special appearance by Solo somewhere in one of those episodes, or Lando in one of those episodes, But I wouldn't take a Lando spin-off, for example. I wouldn't have a movie about him where people are clamoring like, we have to have Donald Glover's Lando movie, and I'm like, no, we don't, not at all. It's going to be one of the really boring movies, unless it's a gambling movie. Then where he wins Bespin, and that's how
It's
he
like
gets
Molly's
control of
Game,
it.
but with Lando.
There you go. But that's it. So I don't know. I think that the world in which Solo is situated definitely is beneficial for TV. That would be something I'd love to watch. But
that's
the
what I'm
character
really
himself,
getting at, I suppose.
the character himself, I think, belongs on the big screen, but the world he lives in, definitely small screen.
Fair enough. That's a good way, but Ellie was trying to say something.
All I was going to say was, I reckon it's pretty much what Jason just said with the whole like Han himself doesn't particularly suit the TV.
Sure.
I sort of don't think that Han Solo fits on the TV or the big screen, because I think Star Wars in the original trilogy sort of managed to accidentally discover that they can make amazing characters by not telling us anything about them. Like Boba Fett is one of everyone's favourite Star Wars people, and he is in like 3 scenes. All right, not Jason, not Liam. You're in the minority, people. But it's the same with Han. You get these stories from Han Solo that Han Solo's kind of lying about, or maybe exaggerating his own thing, and I didn't need to see them on screen because they're never going to be what I thought they would be. So when you see them, you're sort of like, oh well, that's not what I imagined it being like, and that to me takes away some of that feeling of being a kid and being like, oh,
that's true. That's totally true. Absolutely.
I kind of get that, but doesn't that parallel a little bit of the arc that goes on in The Last Jedi with Luke Skywalker? The fact that he has become this kind of legendary status, but at the same time, when you strip him down to what his bare essentials are, he's a guy. He's a human. And I think that that's what Han Solo, the movie itself, is that people have built him up as this legendary pilot and whatnot, and he believes his own bullshit even throughout the entire movie, even in the original trilogy. Even when he corrects Chewbacca on some specific thing, he's like, no. If we do this with it, then everything's fine. And so he's himself building up his own legend, and I think that if you're in a smuggling world and all that stuff, if you start building up that legendary status, it's like poker games. People get these larger-than-life names, and when you watch them play, they're like really calm individuals and whatnot. You're like, okay, let's see what's going on. So that's what the funny thing is that when you compare him and contrast to Lando in the Solo film, Lando basically says, every story you've heard about me is true. And then when you pick apart who Lando actually is, you kind of realize that he's putting himself up on a pedestal, but he hasn't earned it. Where Solo, by the end of the movie, you're like, okay, I can understand why he is the way he is in the original trilogy. He's been through some shit that we've seen, So I don't know. I'm gonna have fun defending Solo. Is it perfect? No, 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 no. I can understand why people don't like this movie with regards to the pacing and how the structure is, some decisions that they made and whatnot. However, if I look at it in the context of the whole Star Wars universe, it's kind of fun to have that small piece of the puzzle where you're like, okay, I'm glad I have that one there. Moving on.
I also like, and I don't know if this is getting into spoiler territory, so I'll let Ellie decide when she edits, but I like
That's what Liam says when it is going to be a spoiler.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that they've deliberately attempted to address the whole, like, hand shooting first, sort of all that bullshit. They
That's
very
great.
deliberately...
Yeah, I almost said it earlier, too.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Is that a spoiler?
Yeah, probably.
Fuck off.
I don't think it is.
No, I don't.
I don't think it is.
Exactly. And that's democracy. We've outvoted you.
Oh, okay, fine.
I liked that. The thing is, I read somewhere, like an article or something, that I kind of agree with, that these spin-offs, instead of expanding the Star Wars universe by focusing on established characters and events, it's making this huge universe just seem smaller. And I would kind of like to have a Star Wars spin-off where it's a completely different set of characters, and maybe like these huge events have happened in the background, and it's, you know, these characters just dealing with the fallout of that, but they're not directly related or tied into characters that we're familiar with.
I guess that was what they were trying to do with Rogue One, where it's essentially entirely different characters, but then it all still plays into the exact same conflict and leads you right up to where you remember the story, so it kind of defeats itself a little bit there in what it could have done, I guess. But I figured they're just building up to it. I mean, they've announced the fucking Boba Fett film.
No, it's not been announced by Lucasfilm at all. It's just a rumor. Mangold's probably working on a script. That's it.
All right, well then, who the fuck cares? So they've announced nothing of note. You know, but the interesting thing, at least, is that they've got the guys who do Game of Thrones, or at least Benioff, who actually comes up today as one of the many one of the many people to blame on X-Men Origins,
or celebrate.
Yeah, that's right. I'm absolutely going to say how great this man changed my life, and the other guy skipped something. But yeah, I mean, they're building that show. I doubt it's got anything to do with any major world as it stands today in the Star Wars lore, other than what you might find in like books and whatever that I don't have any say in. So I think that's probably the baby steps. I imagine if those characters from that get big enough, then they'll say that's a 200 million investment or something like that, you know. But I can't imagine Disney go like, oh, there's no reason to, like, it happens unless it's something like Knights of the Old Republic kind of shit, where it's like, you know, so long before the Star Wars current canon is happening, we've got a bunch of other people, and then they go back before the prequels, and then they have to address
the Star Wars canon right now, only old.
Yeah, exactly. It's a defeatist attempt to do anything because nobody really cares, or should. But you know, they'll probably invest like that. I think that you could see like Star Wars Bespin or something like that, you know, and it's more like collected stories of characters who are all centralized in one event on a planet or something like that. I could see them announcing that with totally different characters, but will they anytime soon? Probably not. Not with Solo blowing their latest. That's an investment in a big name, and it's kind of backfiring, and now they're going to be freaking out.
Yeah, but at the same time, not many people like. And I'll understand. Like, if I take my mom and dad, okay, Han Solo to them is Harrison Ford. They are probably not going to go out of their way to see a movie dedicated to Han Solo. My parents are not going to see the new Star Wars movies. You know, they're relying on people like me to take my kids. That's what's selling the tickets. Now, there's so many factors that go into why it well, I'll say underperformed, but I don't know. I just wanted to address what Liam was saying a little bit earlier about making the world smaller, and I kind of disagree with that. You know, before Rogue One, no one had ever heard about, like, kyber crystals, you know, and this was all relegated to the books and all that stuff, you know. No one had, you know, seen anybody construct a lightsaber. No one knew who Saw Gerrera was. You know, I understand how they took, you know, the opening crawl of A New Hope and then kind of just decided to make a movie about it, and I can understand how people would interpret that as small. But it also brought us to a series of new planets. Yes, they're kind of related to the conflict that's going on, but it is sign of another story, you know. And in Solo, I mean, that's another thing where we went to other planets that we'd only seen in expanded universe. We have a brand new character in Enfys Nest, who, you know, is somewhat tied to a little bit of what we know, but not in a way that we've actually seen before. So, I mean, to me, that's introducing new material that they can build on, you know, or have people speculate about. And it's actually opening up. Maybe, yes, in terms of the timelines, we're kind of staying close. You're playing it close to the chest and whatnot. But they're introducing new and exciting things in that can expand to other things, you know. And so I kind of like that. Even going to The Last Jedi and going to Ahch-To, we'd never seen that planet before. We'd never seen a Jedi temple before. We'd never, you know, these are all interesting things that I think that people are just kind of overlooking. Well, it's the same characters. Look around, motherfucker. Stop staring at just the goddamn image. Look around. It's like going into the forest and staring down at the trail you're walking on as opposed to exploring what the hell's around you. It doesn't make any sense.
Once again, that forest is the one from The Wizard of Oz, and our metaphors get linked, and it's a total nightmare.
It's weird.
I think, okay, I'm going to use like two really bad examples because they're not great. But I think what I wanted from like the Star Wars like story movies is kind of like these like anthology type films, like what the Cloverfield series is doing, and like what Halloween 3 tried to do, where you take like an established thing and you tell separate stories, but there is some like sort of link that isn't necessarily hugely obvious. Right. So I just feel like when you've got this huge galaxy with pretty much endless opportunities, I would have liked to have seen kind of filmmakers just bring these unique original ideas, and then like as long as the story is good, work that into a Star Wars environment.
All right.
But
now,
mostly
I've never watched Halloween 3. Is Michael Myers in Halloween 3?
No, so Halloween 3 is Season of the Witch, where the initial idea for Halloween was they did 1 and 2, which were linked, and then they were going to have a new Halloween film that came out every Halloween that had the Halloween title but just told a completely different story. So the third one is about haunted masks that kill children with lasers and bugs, and it melts faces and stuff.
Okay, I won't be watching that. But
it's awesome.
Cloverfield, they tie it all together with aliens, do they not?
I mean,
I don't think they were supposed to be, though.
Jason, you're underestimating Cloverfield lore there, my friend. They tie it all together with a slushy company.
There you go.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I understand what you mean. I kind of get that. I understand that if you take Solo out of the Solo picture, you take Lando out of it, and you have, you know, maybe Chewbacca as the main character if you want, it kind of is a little bit of what you're talking about, you know.
Yeah.
It is a separate story. I would love to see new characters. That's definitely. But at the same time, you're talking about Halloween 3, and now we're 3 movies into the Cloverfield. We've only have 2 movies that are related to like the anthology movies. Maybe number 3 is exactly what you're looking for.
Well, unless it's Boba Fett, and then it probably won't be.
No, definitely not. I completely get that. But that's one movie that I'm like, I in my head the same way. I was like, I don't want a Solo film. Why? And then after that, I was like, okay. When I saw the trailer, I was like, what am I complaining? I'm going to go see this. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And then the same thing with Boba Fett. I was like, I don't like that character.
Yeah,
but I'm going to be there opening night anyway.
To see you cartwheeling your opinions back on that one.
Oh, all the time, man.
You've like recorded in podcasts for like the last 2 years, every now and then, just saying, by the way, Boba Fett, what an overrated pitch.
Yeah, but I'm gonna see the movie anyway. Maybe it'll be interesting. You know what I mean?
Greatest Star Wars anthology film yet.
It could be that too, and I'll be 100% okay with it.
Yeah.
Disintegrations.
Jason, what would you give Solo out of 5?
4.
Okay, that's a high rating. I would have gone for a 2, but it's just because there were like huge moments where I was just like, I don't care what's happening, and that's not what you want.